Inside the Arena is presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sportsbook.
Welcome to Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels.
How about that? It's a brand new show open.
We love it. Thank you, Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel.
Oh, God, it's a great place to be. It's a great time to be living.
It is. It's a new year, new hope, new presenting sponsor of Inside the Arena. This is like the start, like when you have the New Year's resolution, you actually stick to it.
Yeah.
This is kind of like the trend we're on here.
ITA number 32, baby.
32, cracking 32, like a lot of some symbolism there, you know?
Yeah, and we've got another big show. Anne McCoy, she's the real McCoy.
Hey, well done.
See what
there.
I
Yeah.
did there?
Oh, that was a cool conversation because as we know, and we talked about it last week with Tim Brandel of the Cougar Collective, like there's a lot of cool stuff. Well, I shouldn't say cool because it's born out of some difficult situations, but there's a lot of strides being made right now by WSU Athletics. And so who better to talk to than the person in charge of that department? So that's a wide-ranging conversation from the hiring of the new coach, Jimmy Rogers. You'll get to that in a second. But also the idea that there is so much going on outside of football, and as they just try to navigate this storm that we've seen in recent years.
Well, we will talk more Cougs in a second, but first, what we always do. Every week, we talk about what's good and what's bad in the world of sports off the ice, off the court, off the field of play. We call this Four Corners.
Yeah.
Niko, what do you like, first of all?
First base, positive. How about the PWHL, the Professional Women's Hockey League? We talked about this a few weeks ago with Beth Knox, and they came to Climate Pledge Arena. They drew, it wasn't quite a record, but it was their season high, just under 13,000. And that's really cool to me. We talked about how they're doing the Pacific Northwest tour, and it could be something maybe they call this area home permanently, provided they get some more franchises and that sort of thing. But to have that turnout, and let's be honest, there's probably a lot of casual Seattle sports fans that had no idea this was going on, and yet they still drew almost 13,000 fans. So first of all, the game was amazing. It went to a shootout, Boston beating Montreal. But to have that kind of turnout for an event like this, I think that speaks volumes of the Seattle sports fan. We love you guys, and I think that was just a real strong message. Seattle is just, A, a hockey town, B, full of diehard fans, and C, willing and open to support even a new, so to speak, league. Not new in its inception, but new to our region with that event, the takeover, as they called it. I just loved every part of that event.
Well, and likely what's going to happen now is the PWHL will expand to Seattle before the NBA does. I think that Seattle just solidified that with that turnout for that game. One of the biggest crowds next to Boston this year in the PWHL. We heard Beth Knox, as you alluded to in one of our previous shows. It really sounds like that league is interested in Seattle, and this city just showed that they love women's hockey.
Absolutely. And it was, man, that was a fun game to watch, too. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what else I think is positive, and we are going to talk in depth in this show about it, but what has happened in, say, the last week or so over at Washington State University after what was really a horrible month and a lot of dark clouds over the university. We have seen a new coach, Jimmy Rogers, hired, and I think right now I like the way he's building his staff. More money is being spent on his coaching staff than under Jake Dickert. We saw that Anne McCoy has added more money there. Mike Uapati, who's the former Seahawk, former University of Idaho grad from the University of Idaho, played in the NFL for more than a decade. He's been hired as an offensive line coach. They have signed recruits, notably from South Dakota State, and also some big guys. I think that's one of the things that we have seen in transitions over at Washington State University is the size, and guys, the Paul Wolf era really was a bad state of affairs for Washington State University in terms of the competitiveness of that football team. They are getting people in the transfer portal that are big. I just saw somebody sign 6'7" and a lot of tight ends. It's going to be a different era for Washington State. May not be the offense that people have seen in the past. The air raid is a thing of the past, but at least it seems like there's some stabilization there at WSU.
Well, it's hard to argue with Jimmy Rogers and the success he had at South Dakota State. And so it's interesting that, you see these guys, okay, you're taking FCS kids, but they were the top of the top FCS kids. And listen, this is a new era they're coming into, not just this weird schedule coming up in 25, the stopgap, so to speak, but, entering the new Pac-12 in 26. And so you have to understand, okay, you can almost look at your opponents in that, the Nevadas, the San Diego States, the Colorado States, etc., and say, okay, this is how we have to attack these guys. And as we'll hear in just a minute, I think that's something Ann looked at when hiring Jimmy Rogers. And in turn, I think that's what Jimmy's looking at as he attacks the transfer portal right now.
Donors had closed their wallet about a month or so ago. They've reopened their wallet, according to the Cougar Collective.
Love to see it.
So what don't you like this
Chris,
week?
Here's my thing. I'm going to donate because it's just after the holiday season. And
look at you.
Sometimes we have like that holiday season hangover, like Christmas, New Year's, all that. Everybody's excited. And then it's like January 7th. We're like, oh, gosh, it's 40 and raining. Like, what the heck? So to keep you in the holiday spirit, I'm going to donate my negative to you.
So nice. You want me to be Daniel's downer.
Well, you know what? I don't have my Diet Pepsi. Otherwise, I'd have a drink with Daniels right now. But I think that I think the downer with Daniels works for today. And because I know something that actually you're not so keen on is something I am keen on. So have at it.
Oh, something about what the Seahawks did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was frankly a little surprised as somebody who is critical of the Huskies. I thought Ryan Grubb was a great offensive coordinator and got a lot of people excited when he made the move to the Seahawks. A lot of thought that was going to re-energize the offense. It did in the first half of the season, and I'm actually kind of surprised that they've given him the heave-ho after less than a year.
That is a short window, no question.
Yeah, I thought he was the right fit, and with Geno Smith setting records this year and making performance bonuses, I thought, hey, why not bring him back for a second year?
And I think that's a strong argument. And the reason this would have been this was almost my positive, but it was impossible to ignore what the PWHL did in town over the weekend. I look at this as a positive because everything you said is true. It's 100% true. Yeah. And Mike McDonald said it as much. Ryan Grubb did do a good job. What I like about this is that Mike McDonald isn't messing around, that he knows, and he's so laser focused. Abraham Lucas called him a nerd to me the other day because he's just so ingrained in what he's trying to do on the football field. So McDonald knows exactly what he wants, and he doesn't mess around to the point where even after just 1 year, even after an offensive coordinator that led your quarterback to records and a receiver like Jackson Smith and Jigba to new heights this year, he was still able to make what at that point is obviously a difficult decision and move on from an offensive coordinator after 1 year. So could we revisit this in 3 or 4 years? But, well, Niko, that wasn't so much a positive.
Yeah.
Without question. But in this moment, I like that right away Mike has identified, like, okay, this isn't driving with the vision I want. Ryan did a good job, but I need something that more aligns with what I want this team to be. And he makes what's a difficult – it's not easy to fire a guy after 1 year that did everything you just said with that offense. So I like the boldness of it. And the last time we saw McDonald be this bold, it was when he basically revamped his entire linebacker core mid-season in November, and it worked out for the better. So I'm taking it as a positive, even with everything you said being 1,000,000% true.
And I don't think McDonald is going to be going out to the Dino's Pub for his next job interview for an offensive coordinator.
Which was amazing in the time. It's like, just go to Dino's. Nobody will notice.
Nobody will notice after a couple of pitchers. This is one of the things we talk about all the time on this show is TV and digital media rights for obvious reasons in the relationship with the return of the Sonics. And there's something I don't like this week that has happened because I think it's going to be bad for consumers and it's going to be bad for the cost of your streaming services. And that is the settlement that was made between Disney and Fubo. Have you seen much about this?
I have not, to be honest.
So Fubo was suing because of Disney's plan against with Warner Brothers Discovery and Fox to create Venue to be kind of a slim service, streaming service for just sports. You've heard about this? It was Venue, something they're going to create.
I think
hear about Venue. They're still going to create. Well, Fubo had filed a lawsuit to try and stop it, antitrust, all that kind of stuff. Well, this week, Disney has bought Fubo. Disney just said, hey, we're gonna end this now. We're gonna put in all our cash. We're gonna buy Fubo, and we're gonna continue on with our plans to create Venue. I think this is where it gets bad. Is Disney's shelling out a lot of money to control the TV and digital rights space streaming. Dan Kaplan, who is with Awful Announcing, he's been a long time sports media writer, follows this stuff very closely. I want to quote some of his reporting on Awful Announcing. in that he said a source close to the media company said the plan is to proceed with venue, which is opposed by a wide range of entities ranging from politicians in the U.S. government to distributors like Fubo. Their agreement is that venue would monopolize the market for so-called skinny sports bundles. That's a channel package offering focused only on sports. Venue will have 14 channels from Fox, Warner Brothers Discovery, and ESPN. The three companies agreed to license only their sports channels to Venue, a measure they wouldn't do with others. There will be different packages and options from Venue to sports and broadcast bundles like the planned offerings from DirecTV and Fubo to the broader packages available today, the source said when asked if Venue would survive. Kaplan going on to write, Venue still will have a unique position as part of the deal with Disney. Fubo can offer an ESPN-only bundle, but that does not include the Fox and Warner Brothers Discovery offerings, and it's not clear how the ESPN bundle is any different than the direct-to-consumer ESPN app Disney is planning for later this year. Disney's going to have a lot of irons in the fire here in streaming. Disney's $220 million price to consume 70% of Fubo is a hedge against adverse court rulings and runaway legal costs with a trial previously scheduled for October 2025. Disney is likely going to combine Venue or Fubo with Hulu. There's going to be a smaller and smaller marketplace for you to get your sports. It's going to end up being Fubo/Venue versus YouTube TV. And what does that mean without choice? Likely means the cost is going up to the consumer.
That was my next question. I mean, the price is going up.
Yeah, so that's what I don't like about that. I know that was a complicated explanation, but that's what we follow here because it matters for things like the Supersonics, right? We've talked about digital TV media rights here on Inside the Arena, how that was one of the things that needed to get settled. It's now settled. And so we always like to talk about this every week, right?
Yeah.
The Supersonic Minute, what is going on in the return of the Sonics potentially to Seattle. This is something we cover every week here.
And we love covering it.
And we love covering it. We're still waiting on the Boston Celtics to be sold. That's one thing. So there is a valuation. The NBA.
Does that feel like that's the last one?
It feels like that's the last piece of this puzzle. After we thought it was going to happen in the fall.
Right.
Multiple people have been reporting on it happening in the fall, in September, October. Here we are now getting into January. The Celtics could be a $6 billion deal, would set the market for what the price of expansion would be in Seattle and Las Vegas. One other bit of information this week, because it does factor in a way when we're talking about the finances of the NBA, is that the Euro League, which is considered the second best league in the world, the NBA has been considering starting a new league in Europe with their own teams and potentially pulling the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, the teams in Tel Aviv and Milano and others into this league. There was a thought that they were just going to absorb the Euro League. Well, little fact that came up here in the last couple of days is IMG, which is the sports and media company that runs that league, is signed a new lengthy deal for another 10 years to keep that league together and tied together until 2035, 2036. And that is all with the backdrop the NBA was thinking about starting there, which means, hey, if the NBA is going to have to start something new, they're going to have to do it with a bunch of new teams, and maybe that's going to be cost prohibitive, especially when we're talking about Seattle and Las Vegas.
Well, yeah, and you talk about Disney having irons in the streaming fire. The NBA is doing the same thing with this, and whether it's the Celtics deal, whether it's looking at expansion, as Adam Silver told you specifically this season, it's not that the goalposts keep moving from a standpoint of somebody's changing the game. It's more like these things keep popping up. And so it is important to monitor these things because if you're a Seattle sports fan and you're like, well, what do I care about a team in Tel Aviv? Well, it all factors in because the league has to get everything in a row before they do what generally is a risky thing in expansion. I mean, you're talking about two more ownership groups carving into that piece of that pie, the media rights and everything else. So they want to make sure everything's set. And, you know, we've seen owners in the past. Jim Dolan with the Knicks certainly comes to mind. And I know you know others that kind of get into this like, well, let's make sure that, we're not losing too much of our pie here, that sort of thing. So, I think there's still the reasonable, cautious optimism about in the next few months getting that news we've been waiting now 17 years for. But there's these little things that keep popping up that they have to put out.
And it also helps to understand why Amazon would want to get involved and get rights in the NBA because the NBA also wants to have global reach. So that's why Amazon and NBA are partners. And speaking of partners, don't we have another partner to talk about?
I think we do.
Right before we get to Anne McCoy.
Let's take it away.
Inside the Arena is presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sportsbook.
Let's just talk about Jimmy for a second. The excitement to bring him aboard, what led you his way, and gosh, and what's been nonstop tumultuous time for you guys. How great is it to get some maybe stability with Jimmy here starting in 25?
Yeah, it feels really good. Like I'm so excited to start the new year with Jimmy Rogers as the head football coach. I think, we've had just a great season, to be honest, that we were able to, finish off with a bowl game and just really an amazing, spirited, team centric, I think. And, love and admiration for each other sort of performance, which I think spoke, volumes to everybody. But it's been good. It's as we talked about what we were looking for once we knew we were going to be in the market for a football coach, really talking with our current student athletes at Leadership Council, but a lot of our former, our student athlete alums in the football program and just people near and dear, just a lot of qualities that really kept coming up. The more we learned about Jimmy Rogers and when we had a chance to really interact with him, and then, more extensively meet with him, it just was clear that he embodied everything, although he, I know he's a proud jackrabbit, from his playing days and his coaching days, but at the end of the day, he may just be a Cougar at heart, because he just seemed to embody all of those qualities that we hold near and dear relative to, being authentic and hardworking and just gritty but also very loyal and very, a person and human, connection driven and just, and competitive. I mean, I feel like Cougs are good people that want to win. And that is what we feel like we found in Jimmy Rogers.
Yeah, well, we just talked about how, you can become a Cougar at heart. It can kind of just happen by being around the program. And speaking to Jimmy's resume, so to speak, and we've seen a lot of coaches come from the FCS, enjoy a ton of success there, and go on to do great things. I mean, or it didn't even have to be FCS. I mean, look what for UW, what Kalen DeBoer did, NAIA, then Fresno, then the Huskies. Yep. Looking at that winning pedigree that coaches had at South Dakota State, how much was that a factor? How exciting is it as he embarks on this journey on the Palouse?
Yeah, no, I think it was very much a factor because I think he knows, or he shows he knows how to win and be part of a program that wins, at a very high level on a regular basis, but also builds a program, that has, a tremendous culture with the student athletes and a, loyalty to each other, but also, just, I think understanding also that there are differences, I think that's part of wherever you're hiring someone from, whether it's, within the conference or across the country or whatever it might be, understanding the uniqueness to the school you're going to, and in this case, Washington State, and really how to translate that success to our university. And I think that's an important quality, and people have to realize that things, they can't just rely on what exactly they did at their former school, no matter where they're coming from.
And now we're seeing some of the things stabilize. I keep using that word, but obviously the portal's been a big thing the entire bowl season, not just for you guys, but for everybody. But hiring coach and maybe settling some of that. We've seen some kids come out of the portal since then. I mean, how good is it to see that? Okay, like people, it's not just us that see this. Like our guys, our student athletes, everybody else is kind of buying into this as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's very important because I think it reminds us that at the end of the day, student athletes choose a university or a program for a lot of different reasons. And many of those are still the same right now. Everything that is about Washington State University and Pullman, the community, the academic programs, whatever drew each one of these student athletes to Washington State, yes, the coaches are going to be different going forward, but so much of what they chose Washington State for is still intact, and and they want to be part of their future. And so I think once they get a chance to your point, stabilize or have it settle, and that they can actually picture who the new coach is, and then they can talk to who the new coach is, as more of those pieces fall into place, I think it takes away that uncertainty that, potentially put them in the portal to begin with, that they just want to preserve their options, and rightfully so. They want to look out for themselves and their future and, feel like they can, be part of what they've signed up to be part of. And I think when they meet the new coaches and see their commitment and their passion and their, investment in the future of the players on the team, it's exciting for them. And I think it takes away some of that uncertainty.
I'm certainly interested in some of the how this went down behind the scenes from the standpoint of, Coach Dickert lets you know he's leaving, and how shocked and surprised were you by that? And then, but at the same time, you can't really stay in that emotion, right? Because you have to move things forward. If you could share that process from when you found out about Coach Dickert to, launching into this search, all the while your football program and all the other programs you oversee are playing. My goodness, can you take me through that process and how it kind of unfolded?
Sure. I mean, the search processes are always unique and dynamic. But the first thing that I think is always a priority, but especially right where we were at with timing of the season and, to your point of kind of what had transpired over the last couple of weeks with a lot of, potential just anxiety for the players. I think the first thing, that we prioritized was really meeting with them and letting the team know where things were at, letting the coaching staff and others know that, where things were at and kind of our, how we saw the next, 7 to 14 days, kind of, or probably 10 to 14 days playing out. And really that we were going to do whatever we could to work behind the scenes quickly and thoroughly and quietly to get the next head coach, but in a way that didn't create a whole nother set of, public drama for them as they're trying to really finish their season and, finish the 2024, culmination of a bowl game. And that was extremely important, not only to them, but to us to kind of protect that. So where normally you might dive right into, search firm and really like the active parts of the process, we really worked to stabilize our team first that first day and, make sure they were in a good place. And then, yes, engaged a search firm and got them up and running, gave them names we were of interest, interested in. They certainly provided names, to consider, but then really just started vetting through that and a lot of phone calls, a lot of meetings, a really a tremendous senior administrative team in athletics really working, together on that. And then we did Zoom interviews, we did in-person interviews, so kind of just kept narrowing the pool to the point where we got to an offer.
Has anybody told you how impressed it is that Jimmy's name didn't leak before you guys actually announced it? Anybody told you that?
Someone has mentioned that, a person or two, which is kind of amazing as you think about it. And it's just always a fascinating process. And, when we got to the point where we knew he was going to be the one, we were like, oh, isn't everybody going to be surprised? But it was, it was kind of, it speaks a lot to the people involved in the process, to be honest, both, candidates and the people, on our staff who really just respected the privacy of the process so that we could work through it, kind of not in the public light. So.
Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed by that, and kudos to your entire team, and that includes Bill. I mean, even when Coach left that morning, like you guys immediately. So we're not trying to makes our job and lives a lot easier in that respect.
Yeah, good.
Well, I appreciate that. I wanted to clear the air. We've seen a lot of different reports, and I don't, we don't need to see the fiscal reports or anything like that, but we see reports out there, whether it's funding for athletics and the relationship between one arm of the school and the other. And I just wanted to clear the air in that respect. What is the relationship right now when it comes to the head of the school, the president, the regents, all that in athletics, and the vision that athletics can truly drive revenue, visibility, not just within your own scope, but in the visibility and prospective students saying, oh, I want to be a Coug because of what they saw in a basketball court or a volleyball court or football, whatever it might be. Can you speak to that relationship and certainly then, take me through how athletics can help the school in kind of the ways I described a minute ago?
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think we see ourselves in athletics as being, kind of an arm of the strategic mission and the vision for the university. And certainly, first and foremost, Washington State University, is a, highly, acclaimed research and academic institution that's really going to focus on their academic mission. And I think everybody supports that. But then I think where we can play a role in the athletic department is really bringing light and, eyeballs, so to speak, to that and bringing people to campus and helping drive enrollment and helping student experience to, really drive retention or then in alumni engagement because of, a lot of things, people will say this is, I got a great degree or they have professors they love, but they'll be like, oh, remember that football game where blah, blah, or, remember that basketball game we went to, or that's what want to be. We want to be the like the passion connectors, so to speak, to the students and the university, and then ultimately the alums, and helping attract people, to help the Pullman business community and all those sorts of things. Like, we feel like we can be a huge piece of that. And so, to your question about the role, like, I feel like at the end of the day, the regents and the president both have their roles and their jobs that they need to do. And we feel like it's our role to help bring information and data about, what we need and what the priorities are and where we need help. And then, that it's their jobs to make decisions relative to, how they see it. And at the end of the day, like, I want an opportunity to, get to the plate and bat around, so to speak, but I understand, I may not be able to impact what the ultimate decision is, but we want the university to have an active conversation about what they see the role for Washington State athletics to be, and then what that entails relative to support or funding.
The story I always tell with that, Anne, is remember when UMBC was a 16 seed and they beat, I think it was Virginia, right? As them, and everybody's buying these Retriever shirts and their enrollment went up just because they saw one basketball game. There's a legit argument to that, right?
There is, and that's the thing is how do you monetize that, or how do you make the correlation between enrollment? I think that's the thing that always makes it hard, is we all know there's a tangible correlation in there, but to put numbers or data to it is challenging, and so then, it's easy to think it is a thing or it isn't a thing, depending on which kind of side of the fence you're on. But we just want to be part of Washington State and helping the overall strategic mission in the special way and unique way that we can.
Last couple of questions, I promise. I love talking to you, so I could keep you all day, but last couple of questions, I promise I'll let you get on your way. From the NIL standpoint, we've seen Cougar Collective really take some big steps, and we actually talked with them recently. Ultimately, a guy like John Mateer transfers, but he has to kind of, take advantage of that opportunity. But we saw a huge, gargantuan effort. How have you seen that part of Cougar Athletics grow, and certainly from the standpoint of, we know that's where everything's going. We'll see how rules and regulations come into play in the next few months or whatever it might be. But seeing that arm of Cougar Athletics grow, how, I don't want to use it, I keep using the word exciting, but how maybe optimistic does that make you moving forward as far as, elevating the game and taking Cougs to a whole new level in that respect?
Yeah, no, I think it is. I would say exciting. I think it is exciting, and I am optimistic about it because it's so new, and it's even more new in the ways we can actually be involved because of changes, in the state laws, and now changes in the NCAA. And, we're working towards really being able to have donors and investors give money to Washington State directly that can go towards institutional NIL, but not at the expense of the collective. I mean, they're so unique and have done such an amazing job of getting, not only up and running in a new space, but then also being able to lean into ways we're able to partner with them now. And so you mentioned John Mateer. I mean, that was a great example of so many people coming together to work towards, a great, potential or a great offer relative to NIL at Washington State University. But I think it's really exciting. I think the sky's the limit in ways we can continue to grow and work and decide what's the right space for us, at Washington State in that, because I think it is going to be incredibly important going forward relative to, one more tool to be able to offer as part of a, benefits package to student athletes. And it's important.
Absolutely. We have focused so much, football specific question. I understand that's kind of the season that's ending right now. What have, athletics wise, what haven't I asked you that's exciting you right now about Cougar Athletics? Any sport? I know that's such a broad question, but but you have so many good things going on over there. I don't want to keep it to one thing, if you will. So take me through some cool stuff that you're excited about right now.
Boy, I mean, I may sound like a homer, but I feel like everything's exciting right now. I think that's the part that's been, kind of unfortunate is there are a few things that are more negative that really capture people's, attention. And then, here we sit with, our men's and women's basketball teams doing great. I mean, we've got an undefeated women's swimming team. I mean, we've got so many great things happening, and, other, newer coaches that are taking over programs, like with women's golf in particular. He's been here a while, but new in the role. And it's just, there's so much exciting happening. I really believe that. And it's a great time. I mean, with the rebuild of the Pac-12 and getting to work with our new partners and, competing in the WCC in the Mountain West this year. I just, again, I truly believe that. Like, it's not just, not just saying that. I mean, I really believe it. And there's a lot of really great things happening and great student athletes doing amazing things with great coaches.
What does it mean to you that you've been able to kind of shepherd this school through what could arguably be called the most tumultuous athletic time we've seen in any of our lives, right? As far as how everything has changed. And yet the Cougs keep bouncing back. You find a new coach, you have a great result on the field, whatever sport or it might be. What does it mean to be weathering the storm and doing so in a way where, if you're a fan of the Cougs, especially on this side of the mountains, you don't really notice. Like, I mean, football starts 8-1, basketball doing great. You mentioned swimming. I mean, from the standpoint of, all these programs are kind of weathering that really crazy storm the way they are. What does it mean to you that you've been kind of shepherding that transition?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for as long as I've been at Washington State University, I feel like it's been, maybe a tremendous honor and sheer dumb luck of timing to have somebody, be able to shepherd Washington State athletics through a time like this, because I've seen so much, of ups and downs over the years, and that inherently as a person, I'm fairly even keeled and, tend to, trend towards the optimistic, because I feel like, it's a lot better than the alternative of being, kind of pessimistic and negative about stuff. And it's meant a lot to me. It's meant a lot to be able to serve the university that I love in this capacity during just a really unique time, because I've told a lot of people that have known me for a long time around here, I say, I'll make good decisions and bad decisions like everybody else, but every decision will be with the best interests of Washington State athletics in my heart.
Well, first of all, thanks, Anne McCoy, for the time. She's only got to find a new football coach, try to find some NIL money, all that good stuff. So we appreciate the time giving us the state of everything that's going on with WSU Athletics. And hey, listen, for all they've endured, what a bright time ahead for that athletic department.
And one thing she didn't mention, which was victory off the field for WSU, the Nick Rolovich lawsuit got thrown out. So there you go. Wazoo's off the hook. Hey, time for the final buzzer. Final thoughts.
You love that.
I love that.
Can I hit it?
Oh, hit it.
This is like a power thing. I've never done this.
Yeah.
There
you go.
You got to really press that thing.
You do. It's hard. There. Yeah.
Listen, here's my thing, and this is, I love doing this final buzzer, and sometimes it's a rant, but other times it's how lucky we are in Seattle sports, and that's what this is. Because in reality, you look at January, and it's like, wow, the Seahawks season's over. Things are slowing down. But the reality is, even with the fall season over, which is, objectively one of the best times of Seattle sports, there's so much going on. You've got that cool overlap of the Seahawks, Mariners, Sounders, Rain, and the Kraken getting going. And so that's really a cool time. But even now, in the alleged slow time, before we know it, the Sounders and Rain and Seawolves are all going to be playing again. You got the Kraken. Hopefully they can make a rally and get to the postseason. You've got all sorts of things that, yes, are going on at this moment, but at the same time, so much to look forward to on the horizon. You got March Madness coming in March. I guess when else would it come, Chris? But, it'll be really cool to see. And it's the first and second round, which is, I think, for fans here in town that just want to see as much NCAA tournament as possible, that's going to be really cool because you get the 4 games there and everything like that, and the Friday, Sunday slate. Really cool. And so how lucky are we in Seattle sports that if we don't have something crazy going on in season right now, crazy in a good way, that there's always something to look forward to, no matter what. And that's the Seattle sports market. It's just a cool time. And hopefully this time next year, we're counting down to the NBA as well. And that's something I know that we're going to chronicle, as we have for about a year now, every step of the way here on Inside the Arena.
And speaking of basketball, also looking forward to the big front office move away from the court. Sarah is now with the Seattle Storm from the Mariners. So a big hire off the court for the Seattle Storm. Big news. That's the kind of thing we follow here on Inside the Arena.
We love Sarah, no question about it.
And David Lee, we will see you next week.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time.
Inside the Arena was presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sports book.